welcome to Business Casual. My name is Nav Nanwa. I'm your host, and I'm joined here with my panel of guests that are going to be joining me for the remainder of the show. This is sort of the water cooler edition of Business Casual, where we're just going to talk about many different topics that are currently affecting the business world. So I wanted to welcome to the show one of our show analysts here on Business Casual, Joe Horneck, as well as Peel District School Board trustee, as well as a past business professional in his previous life, Harkirat Singh. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Very intrigued, very interested to talk about the following topics. We're going to start things off with a bang with the fact that Canadians are just living with too much debt. You know, there was 48% of respondents in the current Canadian Payroll Association survey felt that it would be difficult to make ends meet if they missed one of their paychecks. And I really just want to get a perspective across the table. Does that really surprise you? And Joe, we'll begin with you.
No, I don't think it does. And I think another interesting thing that came out recently was the Bank of Canada's assessment of the vulnerabilities and risks in the economy. And one of the top things they flagged was personal debt among Canadians. Now, the thing they linked it to, which to be honest, I think will ring true with a lot of viewers, is it's linked to the mortgage market, especially in Toronto and Vancouver.
Yes.
And increasing numbers of people taking larger and larger mortgages out in order to buy that first home. And they spelled out in a number of different ways the way that it's growing. So especially there was a group of very highly indebted individuals in these areas who were vulnerable to any kind of economic shock. And I can see in a survey how that would easily kind of pop with people saying, have you saved enough for your pension? Well, no, I haven't. I just bought this extremely expensive home. So no, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point you make, especially, I'll be completely honest. I just recently purchased a home, and it was a huge decision on my end to really, get the funds together, and dipping into my RSP was something that I had to really make a decision about before making that transaction. Harkirat, you yourself being a homeowner as well, does it really surprise you that more and more Canadians are becoming impacted by debt?
Absolutely not. Just looking in my area with myself, tuition rates are increasing, student debt is increasing. We also have increasing housing prices.
Yes.
The prices in Brampton are off the charts.
They definitely are.
Like, don't even get me started. Summer after summer, 100,000, 200,000. Things are going above asking price, 80,000, 90,000. That's unheard of. So a lot of that, and then the quality of jobs, right? We don't have good jobs, especially in that area that I represent, good quality jobs. And I'm noticing as a not so recent graduate now, but working with recent graduates, that it's taking them a long time to find that first job.
Oh, yes.
And that's definitely concerning to me because they already have their student debt and they can't get the job, they can't start making the payments. It's delaying their other purchases in life as well.
And that's a very interesting point you bring up, Hark, because if you think about it, the debt really begins, or someone's debt situation really begins at the start of their post-secondary education. I know a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends who, till this day, maybe 10 years removed from their undergraduate education, are still dealing with debt issues and are still trying to find ways to pay off that student debt, as well as look into buying a place or potentially look into investments. It seems like it's a recurring situation that's taking place. Joe, why do you feel as if that a lot of individuals are having a tough time recovering?
Well, I think it's been the economy generally has been very poor the last decade. Obviously we had the big recession of 2008, and everything's just kind of gone downhill there. It's funny, I was talking to my mother about various friends I had in the past, and she said, oh, where's this person, where's that person? And some of my friends are now far afield. And the answer is always, why are they there? Well, jobs.
Yes.
They couldn't find something in their field, thereby they moved to Utah or whatever obscure location they've gone to. And I think that's one thing from this generation that's grown up since '08, is it's just never been good times. The one thing that the survey doesn't capture, which I would really like to know, is accumulating debt in your early years is expected.
Oh, it is.
It's what people have always done. You invest in your education, you invest in your family when you start that, you buy your first house and your first car, and that's where debt is supposed to be. The thing that's more concerning, and I think the thing the survey didn't give us, was color on are older Canadians who are maybe 10 to 15 years away from retirement. Are they still feeling that crunch? Because on the other hand, they could be feeling cash rich. These houses that are going for 100 to 200,000 houses over, well, that's those people who've been in Mississauga and Brampton for 15, 20, 30 years. And now all of a sudden they're saying, whoa, my house is worth 2 or 3 times what I originally paid for it. So, it could go both ways, and I think that's one thing a survey maybe doesn't give you the color on, at least locally, right?
No, and that's actually a pretty interesting point you bring up, Joe, because one thing I sort of circle back to is when looking at that, looking at that report and that survey and sort of analyzing some of the numbers, one question that comes to mind is how much of this is actually being blamed on the economy versus someone's actual spending habits or ability. And Hark, I'd love to get your opinion. You being somebody that's just recently finished your master's, now looking after the Peel District School Board as a trustee in your area. How much of this do you find when talking to constituents or even talking with your colleagues? Is it more so personal spending habits versus the impact of the economy?
You know what? I think it's both. Okay, so the economy sets the situation, but also like behavioral economics shows us there are behaviors that we do or that we engage in that make us worse off. For example, paying with cash versus credit cards. Okay, research consistently has shown that you will overspend when you pay with a credit card versus cash, right? With cash, because you're visibly seeing the potential destruction into your bank account. So there are behavioral components to this, and there is that definitely your own spending habits. But then there's also the state of the economy, the quality of the jobs, how fast people are able to get a job. So I think it's twofold because, it hasn't been a good past 10 years, so to speak, as Joe has said. And also, personal habits, is there financial literacy? Do young people know about, savings, RESPs, RRSPs? That's also a question as well.
Which sort of leads into my next question before we end off this segment is, what kind of education can be provided to Canadians of all ages when it comes to managing their debt better? And Hark, you being the education trustee, we'll begin with you and then we'll go to Joe.
Sure, I think there's definitely a deficit in financial literacy. There are nonprofits, just with United Way, they have some programs working on financial literacy. The government has sort of put in financial literacy components throughout the curriculum. Maybe it's time to talk about a standalone compulsory class on financial literacy, because this is a skill that you need to know for the rest of your life. And it impacts, the younger generation, but continuously throughout their life, their children, their children's children. So I think it's time to look at making it a compulsory course.
Excellent. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. More education on your finances, something, as you say, will affect your entire life and your family's life. It would be great to have that in the high schools and, all through our careers. I think, another thing is, I think with that kind of thing, it's also exposure to, your parents and your relatives and things like that too. So I think it's also, financial knowledge often is very class-oriented too. People in the middle to higher level classes having more exposure to the content of, how do I save for my RSP? People who don't have that opportunity, whose parents have, low-end jobs, who don't have a chance to save for RSPs, don't have that foothold with building that knowledge in the first place. So I think that's why it's so important to put it into general education, like the Peel school boards and things like this.
No, a very interesting topic, and I'm sure we can talk more about it, but we do got to cut to commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about something that's in relation to debt, and that's minimum wage. Recently, Ontario increased the amount of minimum wage it is currently offering to anybody in the workforce, but was it enough? We're going to dissect that into more detail when we get back here from commercial break on Business Casual.